The progressive era has arrived at the New Mexico legislature. Many of us wondered what the impact of a leftward swing in the Senate would be this session. And it's fair to say we've gotten a good look at it. Here to opine on that session, and that just ended last weekend, is our all-journalist line panel. Joining us from the southeastern part of the state, news director for the Carlsbad Current-Argus, Alamogordo News, and Ruidoso News, Jessica Onsures joins us once more. From the New Mexico Political Report and our own Growing Forward Cannabis podcast, Andy Lyman is back. Editorial page editor for the Santa Fe New Mexican, Inez Russell Gomez, is here. And Capitol Bureau Chief for the Albuquerque Journal, Dan Boyd, takes another turn at our virtual roundtable. All right, we'll get to these topics with everyone, but Dan, I'm just going to list some legislation that passed. Mandatory sick leave for private businesses, aid in dying, repealing an abortion criminalization measure, dipping into the permanent fund for early childhood education, a trapping ban. Is this a progressive wish list as was predicted?
I think it really showed that elections have consequences. Some of those bills you just mentioned had stalled in the Senate repeatedly in recent years. And the fact that they were able to get them through this year. Certainly, I don't think the progressives got everything they wanted. There's still some issues hanging out there on the calendar. But, the permanent fund debate, that's been a decade, that hadn't been able to kind of get that over the finish line. And to see that happen this year, really showed, I think, that the differences in the Senate and the fact that new people in leadership, new committee chairs, and that those do have consequences. And I think we're starting to see that. And there's some frustration among Republicans, I think, that they couldn't maybe have the influence of years past in stopping some of those bills. But certainly, I think that the progressive faction at the Roundhouse is emboldened and kind of flex their muscle a little bit this year.
Hey, Jessica, early childhood education, there's money that comes from extractive industries, which, of course, in your part of the state, how do people feel about a 25% bump in what the state takes from the permanent fund? What's your sense of that?
I think there was a lot of concern about what that means for that fund, especially since we're in such uncertain revenue times. We had a lot of in the communities here, I think we had a lot of debate about what that looks like when you execute that money inside the school systems. That was where the concern lied, not so much as pulling that money, because everybody can get behind supporting education, I think, but really, what does execution of those funds look like within our public schools?
Andy, this is interesting to me. Legislation like a trapping ban, I mentioned, environmental regulation, aid in dying legalization. Republicans weren't keen on them all, certainly. We often heard elections have consequences in the Trump era, and of course, Dan just mentioned that as well. Is this the same deal just on the other end of the political spectrum? Is that what's going on here?
It could be. One thing, as Dan was talking about it occurred to me that this is sort of the last session before the governor's up for re-election. Right, there's a big election in 2022.
Right.
Next year is a 30-day session. They don't get to take as big a bite as they usually would. So I think it was sort of pedal to the metal this session to try to get all those things done.
I'm so curious, Inez, how you feel like where the governor is on this. We've talked about this legislative tilt, of course, we just did, but the governor is going to sign or veto all these things. What have we learned about her politics? With the measures that she's favored, this session?
Well, I think that she was pretty clear what her priorities were. And she had been for aid in dying. She had promised that she would repeal the criminalization of abortion. And I think one of her frustrations as a Democratic governor with Democratic majorities is that she was unable to deliver. And I think one of the themes in politics from Congress all the way down to the state house and to local governments is that if you run for something and you make promises, you want to be able to deliver. And we've had a situation in many areas of government where minorities, in terms of, political parties, can stop what majorities want, whether it's a political majority or the majority of the people. So I think for her to go back on the campaign trail, she's going to say, look, I kept my promises.
Right.
Now, whether that works for her, we'll see, because especially with aid in dying and the abortion laws, there are a lot of Democratic Catholic voters who don't like it. And we have seen in Santa Fe and probably in northern New Mexico and other parts of the states, priests actually preaching from the pulpit against it. So whether that affects voters and changes who votes for whomever, we'll see.
Interesting point there. Andy, I'm sorry, my fault. Dan, I want to come back to this same issue of that abortion ban. It passed early. It really didn't seem like it was a lot of angst about it. It just sort of sailed right through. What was just, as you watched it happen, was it a clue to anything to come, as they say?
For us, it was really specifically in the Senate, kind of a test case of whether, especially since that bill had failed 2 years ago, some 8 moderate Democrats had voted against it, and a lot of them were ousted in last year's primary election. So it was kind of a test case. And once it passed the Senate, I think that really showed us, that things had changed, that it was kind of a new era. Not that any progressive bill would get through, but with only 2 Democrats voting against it this year, and the governor, she had been clear, like Inez said, that get me this bill, and as soon as we have the votes in the Senate, it's gonna happen. And clearly that was the case this year. And like you said, I mean, they got that one through, I think, about halfway through the session, which is pretty early for
right. It's amazing to think about that, isn't it? Halfway through, the big first one gets signed. Andy, let's talk about the budget part of this. Job one for lawmakers, of course, depend on the availability of, it's sort of hung up on the availability of pandemic relief funds. Is this a novel approach for legislators to include this kind of, contingency? Is it safe, or is it just a one-time thing?
I would have to guess that it's a one-time thing. I mean, it's hard to say if everything is novel in the past, 12 to 13 months at this point. So, I think I would think that they would probably sort of shift away from that in the coming years, I would guess.
Yeah. Inez, payday loans did not make it through. And again, another issue that's been out there for years. What happened there?
Somehow along the way, instead of keeping it at 36%, which was still a good profit for the lenders, they added in the House, which was interesting, a 99% cap, and the Senate wouldn't concur, so it died. So you could argue they should have kept the compromise and moved on. But I think this is one of those bills where they said we've compromised enough, because remember, it used to be 150 something and they got it, they got it down from, and now it's still going to be 150 something. And we're just going to have to come back. I think this is one of those bills where people who get contributions from payday lenders say we're helping poor people and feel good about themselves, even though it's one of those cycle of poverty things that we need to get out of. I mean, if the military says 36% is good enough for their soldiers and their sailors, et cetera, I think probably we can live with that.
Jessica, can I ask you to pick up on that as well? For your part of the state, what's your, they're everywhere. I'm not, saying they're just in your part of the state, but that sense of not having this passed, is it the impact in your part of the world?
Well, just to pick up on what Inez is saying, we were talking about a cycle of poverty where it's a bill that, when you look at it on its face, it's one of those helping bills. The thought is that we are able to engage with that below the poverty line communities. And there's a lot of those rural communities in this region. I know that there was a lot of disappointment that it didn't. There was a lot of debate among our small businesses about what their employees could access at the moment and how that would impact them overall. But I think that just like Inez said, there was a lot of frustration that maybe there could have been more compromise to get this thing to move forward a bit more.
Yeah. Jess, I got another one for you, and I'd like some others to kick in on this one too. Did we get meaningful police reform? Or did lawmakers, let the Black Lives Matter moment pass here? Was something missed?
I do think something was missed. I think if there was going to be a moment for any type of police reform, now would have been it, in the wake of everything that we've seen with the Black Lives Matters movement. I know that the consensus from this region is that we want to do everything we can to ensure that our local, state, and regional law enforcement are protected, that they're able to do their job and do their job well and serve the public good. But I think there was also a lot of voices in communities across New Mexico with concerns about how they do their jobs and making sure that they're protected as well as police officers execute their duties. So we didn't get very far. In my opinion, of course, we didn't get very far with law enforcement reform.
Dan Boyd, what was the hang up for police reform? What were the sticky points?
I think one dynamic clearly was the death of a state police officer in the line of duty during the middle of the session down in the Deming area. And I think that, really brought a human element to the debate. Some legislators knew him or knew his family personally. I do think they passed the Civil Rights Act, which, if the governor signed that, would allow for lawsuits to be filed in state district court. That was a pretty hotly debated bill. And I don't know that I would call that law enforcement reform. But it was one measure that did get some traction. But I agree. I think the other ones, I think there was some pushback that law enforcement felt they weren't at the table or they're being kind of targeted. And maybe this was the year to do it. But I think to get something like that passed, there's going to have to be some buy-in and maybe compromises made on all sides. And it doesn't seem like we're there quite yet.
Yeah, I know. Same question. There's been. Obviously, Santa Fe has had its ups and downs with protests in the street, not necessarily Black Lives Matter related, certainly, but something seems to have clunked here when it seemed like it had a lot of momentum going in.
I think that what we've seen when you look at early childhood, that sometimes big things take several years. So that it feels like this is the moment to act, to get rid of rubber bullets or things that, can hurt protesters. But you have to hear out the police side, which is this is how they can protect themselves without actually, shooting real bullets into crowds. So I kind of think this will be back because as we see, every year there's going to be another outrage, whether it's a police officer killing somebody or, as what happened just recently in Boulder, a brave policeman being killed, saving other people's lives. And this is complicated.
Yep. Glad you mentioned him, a Highland High School grad. As well, and he has family here in Albuquerque as well, the slain officer. Andy, lawmakers came this close, maybe this close, to legalizing recreational adult use marijuana. In fact, we'll see a special session in potentially the next few days or so. And a little bit, we're going to hear from Politico's cannabis reporter in a second, but recap what happened and where things stand right now, if you would.
Yeah, so a lot of the action happened last week, actually, the last few days. All eyes were on one Senate committee. Legalization got through that committee, but it was sort of 2.5 days left. The chair of that committee said this bill's just not ready. I think one of the committee members said it's not ready for prime time. And then so the last about 48 to 24 hours was this big question of when are they going to get it to the floor. Things started to come through, and eventually it was confirmed on Friday night about 12 hours or so before the session was supposed to be over, that the governor was going to call a special session. So essentially, to simplify it, all of that stuff is scrapped. We're going to start from fresh, or the legislature is going to start fresh with probably some bits and pieces, but we have yet to see what they're going to consider yet.
Yeah. Dan, on that last point Andy just made about not sure what we're going to consider, do we have a situation where other things may get snuck in to this special? I mean, it's almost irresistible when you think about it.
That's something certainly we're on the lookout for. The governor didn't rule it out. I mean, I don't think she wants to add a lot of things to the agenda. But once you get legislators there, certainly there's going to be a lot of groups pushing for their bills to be included that didn't make it over the finish line. And, like Andy mentioned, the cannabis legalization is very complicated. The more you look into issues, the more questions it raises. And for whatever reasons, I don't think they had some of those conversations earlier enough in the session. And I don't think, trying to pass it in a single day special session is going to be a challenge unless they can reach some kind of a deal or an agreement ahead of time.
That's our New Mexico way.